Hi, Melissa.
Hey, Michelle, how are you?
It's my Friday.
Yay!
Oh, I just need to get through. I think my day is clear after safety, but between now and then it's like a cluster.
Yeah, I can imagine. Trying to pack 2 days into one.
I did the preliminary, like I hand wrote out that zoning certification request. I asked her if she could send it to me in like a Word template because they want us to put this on letterhead.
Okay.
So I was like, can you just send it to me in a Word template? So at least when she does send it, I'll just be able to kind of type in, copy and paste.
Yeah, that'll be good.
Yay.
Good morning.
Good morning. How are you?
Doing all right so far. How are you?
Living the dream.
We're gonna
Are
get
those-
rain. Gonna get some
Yeah.
rain.
It already rained here.
Just a couple drops here, nothing to speak of at all.
I saw there's a high wind warning for tomorrow through Saturday.
Oh, great.
Yeah, like 20 to 30 mile an hour winds with gusts up to 50 to 60 miles an hour.
Well, I don't know if there's any council people on board yet, but you're used to wind if you go to council meetings.
It used to be what?
You're used to winds if you go to council meetings.
That's a good one. Oh, boy. So what else is new in your world, Dave?
Not a lot, just tooling along, trying to keep my head above water and my body moving. It's a challenge. I don't know why they called us the golden age. All you do is go to doctors.
Well, at least they're reassuring you're in good health.
Yes, it's all a part of it. What are you gonna do? Can't do anything about it.
No, what is it? Death and taxes are the two things that none of us have a choice in.
That's exactly right. Of course, if you're married, you have less choices in many ways.
I won't tell Michelle you said that.
Oh, boy.
Morning, gang.
Good
Good
morning.
morning. Morning, how are you?
Okay, we need to show the full view of everybody.
Share screen.
Good morning, one and all.
Good morning.
Morning, William.
Hey, Dave, good morning.
Some guys got signs around the borough saying William Jenks for council. Is that you?
I'll tell you what, I think that's fake news.
We're used to that.
Yeah, I saw Fred Mogul last night and he said, did you leave me any place to put a sign? You got all the prime locations.
Oh, my. You gotta fight to give in all your time. You fight for it, isn't it something?
That's right. I think this is a first at 9 people running for 4 positions.
Yeah, I don't remember anything like it, Bill.
Everybody got wind of the high pay.
Well, that's right. It is. They heard that.
Yeah, the high pay what you get.
Pay for the incoming council members, so. It's one of the higher paying jobs you can have in the borough.
It is.
Yeah, that's right. Oh,
Fred, I
Morning,
saw you just joined us. Can you try talking to see if you fixed your audio?
Excuse me?
Sorry, John, I was talking to Fred. Fred was trying to troubleshoot his audio yesterday and I saw he just joined us, so I was asking him to try and talk to see if it was fixed. Fred?
I guess that's a no, Michelle.
yeah, that's not promising.
No, his Zoom box, so to speak, is highlighting like he's trying to talk, but
Huh.
Fred, sorry, we can't hear you. That stinks.
Morning, Counselor.
Good morning. How are you, sir?
Doing pretty well, thank you.
Good.
Morning, Chris.
Good morning.
Yeah, hello, one and all.
Good morning, sir.
Hey, morning, Woody.
We all ready to go here, Michelle?
I believe so, except Jacob Stein, your first guest, is not yet on the call. I did confirm with him yesterday he was going to attend, so I would say give him a minute.
Okay.
So John, looks like you have fewer worry lines on your forehead now. Looks like that you're in that relaxed mode now. Look at this guy.
Well, it'll be
You look
more
10 years
relaxed.
younger.
It'll be more relaxed at noon.
John, Jacob's on the call now if you want to start the meeting.
Okay. Hey, I'd like to call the Economic Development Committee meeting to order. Can we have a roll call, please? Melissa?
Sure. John Woodward,
Here.
Dave Boucher,
Here,
Fred Levering, Bill Jenks,
Here.
Keith Durr,
Here.
and Greg Portner.
Here.
Okay, I'd just like to say one thing. I got an email from Greg yesterday, and he can weigh in when we get to the Stoltzfus portion of the agenda, that he's going to have to leave a little early. But is there any public comment? Hearing none,
Wanted to ask if Mr. Levering is considered absent since he didn't utter any sound. Because that would not qualify as a quorum or as a presence. Even Michelle, under the new guidelines, that does not qualify as a presence, as being attending this meeting.
but we have a quorum.
Yeah, we have
We have a quorum, that's why I corrected myself, but that he does not appear to be present. So I hope that the agenda would state that.
You mean the minutes?
The minutes, yes, I'm sorry. I'm coming from the gym, I'm in the car, I apologize.
Do we have any indication that Fred can hear us at least?
Fred, can you text me if you can hear us, please, and thank you.
And then if he wishes to speak, will he let you know and then you can do the phone to the microphone thing? So, I mean, in answer to Adrian's question, if Fred can hear us and when he wishes to speak, we can hear him, then he can be considered participating in the meeting. But we need confirmation of those things.
You can hear me because he just sent me a text message.
Okay.
I want to object on that. I looked yesterday over all the regulations. There is none of that. That is really stretching too far. And I don't think that a vote expressed like this is valid. I'm sure it doesn't. And I think we should not stretch when there is no need to stretch. We have a quorum. We just say that he was absent, and that's period, and that's it.
Well, respectfully, I disagree.
I know.
The code provides that if you can hear and be heard, that you can attend electronically.
But we cannot hear him, sir, and he cannot say that he is present when during a roll call, and that is a threshold that has not been crossed. Okay, so he has not said that he's present. He has not responded to a roll call, and the fact that he anybody can send a text message. We don't know if it's Fred Levering. Fred Levering, pardon my saying, he could be dead and somebody could text instead in his place. Well, that
John,
is
are we seriously going to spend time doing this?
Yeah. Can we move on with the meeting? This is ridiculous.
no, it's not ridiculous, sir. These are the laws of Pennsylvania. They may sound ridiculous to you, but you are, flaunting all these regulations. You make your own stuff as you go. No, it is not ridiculous. We just count him as absent and move on.
Whether he's absent or not, we have a quorum and we're going to move on.
That's exactly what I said. Please move on, and he's absent.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Okay, Michelle, would you like to introduce Mr. Stein and go to that part of the agenda?
Sure. The first guest on the agenda is Jacob Stein from Boscov's. I'm sure you all remember Jacob attended the February meeting to talk about some other things, but this time he is back to talk specifically about recreation and economic development. So with that, Jacob, I will turn it over to you, and thank you again for making time out of your busy schedule to attend this morning.
Yeah, I'm happy to be
Thank
here.
you again for, we canceled last month's meeting due to a conflict I had, and I appreciate you coming this month, but go ahead.
No problem at all. Hopefully I can demonstrate my commitment. Our nanny bailed on us this morning, so if you hear little kids screaming, one of which is right here. Say hi, buddy.
Where do you live? I'll be right over.
Yeah, I apologize in advance, but maybe we'll bring some lightheartedness to this call. So, Michelle and I were talking. I'm from Florida. I'm not from here at all. And when I talked to Boscov's about moving here, everything I looked at externally was pretty negative on the area. And for an employee looking to relocate here, you Google Reading. I don't even know what Wyomissing was. You Google, the stats, and unfortunately, the internet has become kind of the window through which you view a company or an area. And I started saying to her, I'm from St. Pete, Florida. It was never a highly touted area. But they did a few things, primarily focusing on pedestrian accessibility and safety that kind of reshaped the perception and the reality of that community. And when I go back to St. Pete 20 years later, it's an unbelievably, flourishing environment because people feel safe biking, walking, taking their dogs. And I've seen some of those elements here that, this committee and this community has done that I think are fantastic. And I said, hey, this is great. You've started kind of the process. How do we put it on steroids? How do we ignite it? Because I'm from a community that kind of went into this wholeheartedly. And, the amount of demand and the amount of kids, young families, that want to move into that community is, through the roof. Now, recognize they're in Florida, it's on the water. They have some elements, you can't recreate an ocean here. But a lot of it was that, non-vehicular access and accessibility to the restaurants, to the shops, to the water, to the volleyball courts, to the shopping centers. Everywhere you go, you're seeing less and less cars down there. You're seeing more and more people walking, riding, biking, rollerblading. And I was just saying to Michelle how excited I was when I saw some of these, better paths, these bike pump stations. And I said, you're starting this initiative. What can I do to help keep it going, both from a resident perspective? I love it here. I have 3 little kids. I'm holding one in my arms. But, also from a corporate perspective, our company is constantly trying to attract new and young talent to Boscov's. Part of that's on us, right? We have to be a company they want to be here for. So that's on us. We can't ask you to help us with that. But the other part is, as soon as they then Google, the area, that's probably, as much, if not more important to their decision-making. What is the area like to live in? How safe is it? What are the bike communities like? And we're just seeing that being more and more important, that people are choosing where to work. It was almost entirely on the company, and now it's become, where are they located? What's that community like? And, I was just here getting excited saying, how can we help? I want to help from a Jacob Stein perspective, and I want to help from a Boscov's perspective, because I kind of view it all as one. If people love living here, if younger families want to move here, it's not only good for our community, but it's good for the employers within this community. And Michelle, as I think more about it, you and I didn't talk about this, but I do think kind of perception is reality. You know, one piece of it is obviously doing what we can infrastructure wise to continue to keep this momentum going. But the other aspect is that, you know, when you used to go window shopping, you used to walk down the street and look in the window to a store. Window shopping today is called Googling. Everyone Googles it and they look up the site online and they see what the community is like. And it's almost, you know, to the point you have so many good stories to tell. I think one of the challenges is better articulating that story, you know, with, you know, videography, with a landing page, with, you know, there's a whole component to our company, you know, for example, all they do is storytelling. They try and find the good work happening. And then how do you spin it and tell it, you know, through the web so that people are aware of it. And you have these fantastic elements here. So I think part of the, you know, request I have and how I can help and how I can be a part of it is I'm not sure who's responsible for kind of the, you know, internet facing aspect of this community or who helps tell that story externally. You know, there's obviously some good things out there already. I remember Wyomissing got rated, you know, one of the top communities in the country to live. So obviously, you know, there's a lot of good work already happening that people are aware of. But how do you take it to that next level so that when, you know, we are interviewing, you know, a candidate to come here, we say, hey, go click this website. And they say, wow, man, I can't wait to move to, you know, Wyomissing. Look at that place. It's got everything. I can be safe riding, walking, you know, raising my kids. You know, I do see some good elements out online. I just think, you know, like anything, if it's done in a first class manner, all of a sudden you kind of put yourself on the map. And really, I wanted to come in saying I commend the group and the team because there's so many wonderful things that are here. It's not that, you know, the elements aren't here, the building blocks aren't here. It's fantastic. We're out on our bikes, you know, as a family almost every day because it's safe and we love it. But it's shocking to me how many people we talk to that say, wait, you feel safe? There's paths over there? I say, what do you mean? You don't know about that? So, you know, it's almost frustrating, you know, that people aren't aware. So part of it is awareness, and part of it was, you know, congratulate you and thank you for all the stuff, you know, you've done, and to say, please keep it going because it's fantastic. And if, you know, for example, if it were safer to bike to, you know, the West Reading or walk there with our family and kids, we probably would more often. I recognize, you know, natural barriers create some real limitations to what you can do to roadways. And I'm not an expert on how you widen roads or how you create bike lanes or, you know, what you can do. That's definitely not my field. I just know that, you know, there's seemingly a growing demand and interest in those things. And whatever you can do as a committee and however, you know, I can help or others can help, I think there's a ton of support for what's going on. And if there's ways to further improve it, you know, I view it as not only good for the existing residents, but, you know, fantastic in attracting future residents, which obviously drives, you know, household value. And from an employer perspective, I think you'll find, if you haven't already, there are employers who would love to help because it helps them attract, you know, the new young talent, which is the biggest challenge facing every organization. You know, who's the next generation of leaders and how do you get them here? I know I speak for Boscov's because that's part of my role, but the same thing for a lot of other employers that I work with is, you know, being attractive to that next generation. So that was kind of my quick speech. I'm really glad that my 3 kids weren't screaming that whole time. And I'd love any back and forth, any questions, anything else I can do. I'm sure you guys have talked about this many times before, so there's probably some immediate thoughts you have on why, hey, Jacob, that's all great, but this, that, and the other reason is why it's been a challenge. But I really just want to weigh in to say, I love what you've done. I'm excited to see it continue and ask how I can help.
Michelle, do you want to run with that a little bit about what we're trying to do?
Sure. So, I mean, Jacob's aware of this, and, you know, he's kind of springboarding off a conversation I had with Penn National 2 years ago, you know, echoing the same exact thing, that when they're trying to attract talent from out of state and potential employees are looking on a map at Reading, Pennsylvania, they're like, ooh, I don't know that I want to go there. Which was why Penn National bought into long-term funding for the bike route. So the Sharrows, the curbside signs, all of the identification markers for the borough's official bike and pedestrian plan will be installed within the next 2 to 3 weeks. Another part of that, and what I always considered the missing link on the bike route, was State Hill Road. Jim McCarthy and I had a scoping meeting with PennDOT about 2 months ago, and the two representatives we met with will actually be attending the May infrastructure meeting to talk about the widening of State Hill Road is finally on the 2021 Transportation Improvement Plan. And one of the things we talked about, do we want bike lanes? Do we want complete sidewalks on both sides of the street? What would that look like for taking, additional right of way? So, these are future discussions that the borough now has a very strong capability of, I don't want to say demanding PennDOT put in those improvements, but, providing a strong recommendation to PennDOT of why we want to see them, how they tie into what we've already done, and how they would benefit not just the residential communities to the west of State Hill Road, but also the commercial businesses on the east. And that widening will go, if PennDOT approves everything once it gets through, engineering, funding, all of that fun stuff, that widening will go from Colony Park all the way up to Penn Avenue. So, I mean, that could be a game changer for economic development in so many ways. I mean, take the bike and ped piece out of it, but just looking at traffic congestion on the State Hill Road corridor, that would make a tremendous difference in just easing congestion over there and getting people to their destinations quicker. So, I mean, that's all I wanted to add based off of what Jacob said.
That's exciting. And as it relates to the Berkshire Mall, I'd love to get in touch with you beforehand to make sure we're working with the appropriate parties to incorporate whatever of those modifications are.
We did give them the preliminary information that we had talked about at the February meeting, just to let them know, hey, in any shape or form, we know something's coming to this corner. We don't know what, when, or specifically what it's going to look like, but that's something that PennDOT needs to keep in mind. And they were perfectly okay with that.
It's exciting.
It is.
Well, this is all good stuff. And my younger daughter, kind of along the same lines, and if I'm wandering too far astray, I apologize, but my younger daughter works at my daughters both live in Pittsburgh, and my younger daughter works for Duolingo. It's an app that you can learn to speak a different language, and they're ready to go public this year. But anyway, the owner of Duolingo, whose headquarters is in Pittsburgh, took billboards out in Silicon Valley in California and said, hey, move to Pittsburgh. It seems like ridiculous, but it's not ridiculous because they're doing it. And just we're on top of it. And I just think there's a big picture out there, and I think we get the big picture and we're on it. So
hey, John,
everybody for that.
John.
Yes.
Steve Brenner, just want to pop in, a year ago or so at Rec Boards, we were talking about making a separate web address for the Rec Board, which I think is always a good idea. But listening to Jacob, I think it just made me think of maybe it's something that if we could do that at some point down the road, maybe we even tie in the school district, or if you want to, and you can also include Berks Catholic with that if you wanted to.
Sure.
So that you have the educational opportunities that when Boscov's or National Penn or anybody else is trying to recruit people into the borough, I think we'd probably prefer to keep it with the Wyomissing School District because you'd have to live in Wyomissing to go there, or West Reading. But at the end of the day, I think that would be a good thing to tie in with the school. Whether we could get any cooperation with the school or schools is beside me, but I think that'd be probably a pretty good point.
Well, I think that's a great idea, but Michelle, who would do that? Do we have a town and gown meeting coming up anytime soon? I don't think we do.
No.
Yeah, we haven't had a town and gown meeting since pre-COVID. I mean, that's certainly something I can circle back to both school districts, the superintendents in West Reading, and look at tentatively setting something up for maybe over the summer, just because they're going into their end of the school year. So I'm sure things are a little crazy for them. My thought is, I know enough people in the Why I'm Missing business community, and I can go back to, some of the donors for WyoWays and some of the entities that Aaron Gantz from the GRCA and I have been talking to. Aaron and I are trying to set up over the summer what we're basically calling a bike share forum. So getting partners on board that we know are already in, like Tower Health and the borough, and then partners that we've attended meetings or spoken to, like Alvernia, Kutztown, the city of Reading, the Doubletree, that are also interested in and potentially talking to Tandem Mobotics about signing contracts for bike share. So I think there's, that organizational entity side of it, and then there's the private commercial business side of it. How do the two sides come together and come up with some type of plan for promoting it, marketing it, managing it, and kind of feeding it, not just financially, but also trying to get new members or people coming to the table. So, I would suggest I reach out to some of my business contacts and see if we can either have individual conversations or, set up a group meeting that we can all get together and talk about what does this look like? How does this work? Just start bouncing ideas off each other.
Think that would be great. And hopefully in the next couple of months, we'll be able to do it in person. And I think that would be a better thing.
Great.
But we'll see. We'll just keep doing what we're doing and whatever. So any other things on the rec and economic development portion of the agenda?
Nothing for me, but thank you for letting me join. And Michelle, I'm happy to join that follow-up separately whenever you start putting it together.
I will
Jacob,
definitely.
thanks for joining us today. I really appreciate it. So
Yes, sir. Thank you. I'm going to sign off. No offense, but these kids are losing
it. You'll have this.
Bye.
How about we'll go to the Stoltzfus part of the agenda, and as background information, Michelle, myself, Fred, Chris, one of Jim McCarthy's guys met out at the Stoltzfus farm, or not farm, or homestead. Thank you. I was looking for that word, but I don't know, a few weeks ago, and we got a tour there, and Greg Portner was there last week, apparently, and Elam and Esther gave him a tour. And, here in Why I'm Missing, I know the Economic Development Committee is a looking forward kind of perspective, but historical perspective, we just talk Thun and Janssen all the time, and Stoltzfus predates the Thuns and the Janssens by over a century, and it's really impressive stuff what they're trying to do. And I don't want to elaborate on what they want to do. We have the printout of what they sent us, but it's just remarkable, really, about what the Lutheran Germans and turned into Amish people in America funneled their way through Why I'm Missing in 1766 or whatever. Correct me if that date is wrong, but I just like to hear what Elam has to say, and you're on. Go ahead.
Okay.
And don't forget to make a plug for your party or your fundraiser on Saturday.
We'll do that. We put so much sweat, equity into this. We've been aching every morning, just trying to get up, go through the next day, but it's been rewarding, and thank you so much for having us. But Esther wants to start the conversation, so go ahead, Esther.
Good morning, everybody. And first of all, I think it's really cool. We're getting to tag on to Mr. Stein's comments. We also are from Florida. And 5 years ago, if you would have told us we were going to be moving to Pennsylvania, I would have laughed and said, you are crazy. But you know, things have a way of working out. And I want to say, first of all, thank all of you for taking such an interest in our place. We loved having you all come and visit, giving you tours. That's what we're all about. You can see for yourself what we're here for. So we thank you for being so visibly interested in what we're doing. We want to be good neighbors. We want to be good supporters of Wyomissing and make this a place where more and more people will come. And by the way, John Woodward, I have rhubarb plants for you at my house. So
I'm going to pick them up. I got some, my wife got some, but I will plant some here at my house.
All right, they're here. So, and I'm going to turn it over to Elam.
I think according to the letter, you see that we're trying to kind of figure out what we have here. So one of the things that I wanted to do when I got here was to compile all the information into one file. This was pretty much run by the board. Most of them were in Lancaster, and they only come up here now and then. So, you know, you had the situation of 10 years, not much happening here. So we're the first full-time caretakers, and we kind of come in with a passion. We both have worked hard in our careers. I had a successful film production company and did films for public television in Florida. My wife was a ER nurse, so she made life and death decisions. So we were used to working hard and making things happen. So we bring that same approach here to the Stoltzfus house. So when we started looking at I think one of the issues we want to address is the zoning. It's still zoned under retirement home with the leaders, Country Meadows, because they had owned the property before the Stoltzfuses did. So what we want to find out, what or how advantageous is it for us to look at that zoning and try to change it? And that I think will determine what we can do with it. The barn, the upstairs, we all have some questions. We have spelled out what we would like to do, but our questions is the zoning and what we have, what can we do and what can't we do. That's kind of the bottom line. And once when that's determined, then we will adjust accordingly. We'll know how to market and know what to do. So that's it, kind of a nutshell. So hopefully you've read the document, and I think it spelled it out fairly well, and you saw what we have here.
To give the committee a little background, Elam and I first spoke about 2 months ago. And, you know, Elam explained to me how he was brought to the property. He was picking up the pieces from, you know, prior caretakers, managers of the property, and what the preservation committee wanted to do moving forward. The prior caretaker / preservation committee went to the zoning hearing board back in 2008, 2009, and received a laundry list of variances to be able to construct the barn with the caretaker's residence and do certain specific things at the property. So when I had the conversation with Elam about moving forward, what the preservation committee wants to do with the property, zoning was the red flag. Again, it's in the R4 zoning district, which is a retirement community. Nothing that they want to do moving forward is permitted by right. The borough does not have any type of historical zoning district. And looking at other zoning districts we do have and uses that are allowed by right or special exception, none of those really made sense to potentially look at changing the zoning for this property to either. So that led to a conversation with Chris about, you know, what makes more sense. We both feel that maybe looking at, you know, drafting some type of language if the committee is in favor of, you know, this project moving forward, drafting some type of language that ties the historical nature of the property into what their plans are for the future of preserving the history, almost turning it Elam, am I correct that you do intend to try and get it on the historical register if it is not already?
Right, yeah, it's not on yet, but we made the first hoops. They did accept our application, but they have questions and there's some things that we have to answer, and that's what we're working on this summer. I think we'll make it.
I mean, so if everything's done right by the Preservation Committee and Elam and Esther, this has already been a draw from a tourist standpoint, just not one that was on the borough's radar. I think, this could now go to the next level, and the borough has the choice to work with, the Elam, Esther, and the Preservation Committee to put some regulations in place to allow that to happen, in a way that if I would force them to go to the zoning hearing board, I think the board might be a little reluctant to grant the number of variances that are required. And frankly, this is something that I think the Economic Development Committee, the Planning Commission, and Council should have the ultimate say on.
So Elam, you talked about getting additional property to make more parking there or whatever and put a pavilion. How's that coming along, or is that still on the radar?
It's still on the radar, but it's not going anywhere, and it probably won't for a while because of the leaders and the COVID situation. And our own chairman had COVID and he was quite sick. So one of the things that happened since we saw y'all is I'm in charge of the auction. So I had to pick up the leadership and the pieces and put it together. So, but it's gone well. All family stepped up into it, and that's part of what we're here for. Our family is actively engaged in preserving and involving it. Our big auction we have coming up on Saturday, we're not alone. We got lots of help from our family and supporters for it. So, yeah, there's a lot of moving parts. We had talked about the barn first, the open part of it. We would like to be able to have weddings, venues, family reunions, and that's ongoing requests. Some of them, we will do this summer on a small scale, but we haven't chosen to promote it yet, and we would like to. And then, of course, that small apartment on the side, if it's possible to turn that to an Airbnb, because part of our concern too is any facility in operation, you have to make it viable and pay for itself, and that has not happened. And so, if we're going to continue doing improvements, and we have to be able to market it and make it pay for itself. So we're looking at that. And then you have the house, the historical house, and so what we're working on there is trying to make it look more like 1770s, and that's coming along. It's starting to look good. So a couple of venues we know that we want to do is school children, and there's been a lot of interest in the Amish schools in Lancaster to be able to come up here, spend a day, school days, and we'd like to try a few of those this fall. And if that's successful, then really start promoting it in the spring and do probably like 2 months, March and April. And if that works for that, then we'd like to open up to Berks County as well for school events. And we are fortunate enough to have a distant cousin that designs curriculum for school children, and she's a professor at University of Central Florida. And she has got a sabbatical in coming up to Millersville and Lancaster all next year. So she's going to spend some time here and helping to look and helping design a curriculum for us.
According to the Pennsylvania state standards, the school standards for, specific age groups. You probably, y'all are a lot more experts than I am, but that's what she's using.
Did I cover most of the bases there?
I think so. Yeah. Right now, because of some of the zoning things, John, to answer your question, kind of about parking, we kind of maybe we're sort of looking at some of the other smaller events that would not create the big parking dilemma. Maybe not so much trying to market it as a venue for weddings and stuff, but to actually just let the barn be used for an occasional family reunion, a Stoltzfus family reunion that does not require, all the parking dilemma that we talked about. But maybe using the big room for like corporate meetings, or kind of like a heritage room or something like that, and instead focus more on the Airbnb, which would not create any parking dilemma.
So is your board comfortable with your vision of having larger, in the big picture, going forward, larger scale events there, like wedding receptions and corporate events or whatever? Is that, or do they know what you're trying to accomplish here in the long term?
They do. We communicate very, very closely. And some of these visions that we are talking about is from them. And so our job is to try to move them forward. They've been kind of stuck as an idea on paper for a number of years. So yes, we communicate well with our board.
Well, you've come a long way, so your nose is under the tent. But so Michelle or Chris, what do we need to do for them right now? Nothing or something?
Well, looking at the zoning ordinance and the zoning issues related to this property, I think it's too small to consider some different zoning district for this location. But what I have been thinking about is the borough could consider something like a historical tourism overlay district. And that would be a regulation that would be applicable to a property that meets certain criteria. And those criteria could be its, historical qualities and proximity to public parks, something like that. I mean, it could be something that is fairly tied into this location. And what I would suggest be permitted in that historical tourism overlay district might be beginning with, just the smaller scale items, the family reunions and occasional smaller group tours, or whatever we could, identify as sort of the lower impact kinds of activities that could occur at the property. Perhaps the Airbnb might be included. But we could also include in this regulation the opportunity to scale up if off-street parking can be provided for the location, so that if the Stoltzfus group could secure the right to additional off-street parking, either with some arrangement with Country Meadows or some arrangement with the county park system that would give them access to a larger amount of off-street parking, then the regulation could permit larger scale activities to occur on the property. So that would be at least a concept as a starting point. If the committee is interested in exploring what I've just described, it's something that Michelle and I could work on and provide you with a draft for further discussion.
I think that sounds like a good idea, and it seems like we could do that one time instead of revising it over time.
Right. That's
Yeah.
my intention, is to make it scalable based on the evolving situation at the property.
Gotcha. So Dave, did you know anything about this property when, you've been around for a long time, and I've been around for a long time, but you're a little longer than I am. Did you know anything about this property?
Sure did. I was actually in it in my young days as a patrolman when there was a tenant farmer in there who used to work for or with Tulpehocken Farms, part of the whole farm area where the entire land goes all the way up to the Van Reed paper mill. But I had an occasion to have some kind of a call there, response required for police. And I happened to go there, and there was a nice young gentleman, not young, older gentleman who was the tenant farmer working for Tulpehocken Farms, lived in there with his family, a host of kids. They were mentally challenged, but the thing that sticks out in my mind in my visit in that place was the fact that it was a dirt floor. And watching the Stoltzfus family through these years put all the labor and treasure into restoring what I consider a historical gem. And it's got a direct tie to us in the borough of Wyomissing with the Schmucker place, the Stone House.
Right.
So, you know, to me, it's a natural tie. I've always been somewhat dismayed by the fact that there wasn't more interest on the part of the Berks History Center in this property. But from what I read in the material provided us for this meeting, there are some efforts to include or have the History Center be more involved in this. But it's a gem. It should be protected and used, and the education aspect of it, bringing kids in there by the school bus load to look at a property that goes back as far as it does. You know, I am envious of anything that goes back further than me.
And that's not much, though. Well, thank you for that. Well, I think going back to what Chris said, I don't know if we need a motion or something. I hope the committee is amenable to doing what Chris said, making some sort of overlay district that can be expanded and recommended to council, and so that Chris and Michelle can go over and draft some sort of overlay, historic overlay.
But John, if you're looking for a motion, I'll make that motion.
Yeah, and I'll second it.
Okay, is there any further discussion?
Well, I think that's a great idea. I really like the concept of scalable because that really fits into what we're trying to do, because we can only take little bites at a time. We're not trying to bite off a whole elephant at one time. We just want to eat away a little bit at it. So scalable, yes, I love that idea. I think that's workable.
I think it's a wonderful property. I mean, we have our own little piece of history here right nearby. I mean, it's amazing. The properties are amazing. You know, I think we should do everything possible to help the society and the committee and Illuminester do their thing over there. And it's just great.
Yeah, it's unbelievable to me. I've lived here for almost 70 years and didn't know anything about it. So, you know, I guess ignorance is bliss, but
well, if you remember, before they built the bypass, that used to be right off the exit ramp, right off the main, you know, coming off the West Shore bypass.
That's right.
And so I always saw the property there, but again, you know, you saw the pictures, it was in ruins. But man, I tell you, they have done a lot of great things over there. The place is beautiful.
It is beautiful. Okay,
there used to be a 2-lane roadway from Kissinger Lane all the way down to West Reading. That was River Road at that point. And that was along that. I think the borough should do everything within reason that is within the scope of the history of Wyomissing Borough. And we're fortunate that place existed. It's one of the first properties settled along the Tulpehocken Creek. I think it deserves all the attention we can give it.
I agree.
Yep.
So we have a motion and a second. Is there any further discussion on that? Do we recommend to council to go ahead with a proposed historical overlay district? Any further discussion? Hearing none. All in favor? Aye.
Aye.
Opposed? Wonderful. You know, Elam and Esther, we're here for you. Don't hesitate to reach out for whatever we can do to help. But thanks so much for coming to this meeting, and I'll see you on Saturday.
All right. Well, thank you. And thank you. And I'm sure I'll be in discussion with Michelle and we'll take little steps. That's what we're all about. And we really appreciate it. This means a lot to us and to the committee. And you'll see many of them here on Saturday. Many will be here. So We've got some great items. We've got a young auctioneer this year. He's really excited. He's good. So it'll be fun just to hear him do his thing. So we've got good food, barbecue, homemade ice cream, soft pretzels, and lots of books. So, well, thank you so much. So
Would you have furniture as well?
some, not
Okay.
a lot this year, but there's some here.
And quilts.
Yeah.
Okay,
Oh yeah, and quilts, old quilts.
right.
So,
Okay.
so what happens next now? I'll just keep in touch with Michelle and we'll begin moving forward.
That'd be
Chris and I
perfect.
will need to put together a draft ordinance that would come back to this committee for review and comment. Once this committee is okay with it, it would then go to the planning commission for their review and a recommendation to council for advertisement and adoption. But I will definitely keep you in the loop in the meantime as to what that ordinance looks like.
Okay.
And I'd like to have Elam's feedback on the draft.
Okay. Yeah, and then we'll also need to share it with our committee, especially our chairman and associate chairman. They're actively involved in the decisions that need to be made here. They get involved even as much as the color. Like if the paint ain't quite right, it's not quite the right color, they want to be involved in all those decisions. So yeah, we got a really good committee right now. Really grateful for that.
Elam, what is your time frame for Saturday? What's the program timing? What starts, when it starts?
The auction starts at 9, and then at 11 o'clock, the quilt sale, and 12 o'clock, the old books collection sale. And food all the time, but you come early, there's breakfast here already at 8 o'clock.
You probably do have to work on your Pennsylvania Dutch accent though a little bit there, Elam.
I can if I really need to.
There you go.
It comes out in everybody. It comes out in everybody once in a while.
I spoke Pennsylvania Dutch before I could speak English, and when I went to school in first grade, my cousin had to translate for me till I learned English. I lived in the South for 40 years, and my wife, she doesn't have a clue about this Pennsylvania Dutch accent.
The only way I'm bilingual is by speaking Southern and English. That's it.
There you go.
I think I'll tell you a story. Somebody asked her the other day, they looked at her and said, "This doesn't make sense. You have the name Stoltzfus, but you got a Southern accent." Well, thank you so much. And we are delighted and looking forward to working with y'all as a team, with the borough. And we want to help put this on the map. We'll make Berks County proud, I promise you.
Well, thanks for taking the time to come to this meeting in the first place and take the time to give us a tour. And it's great. And I mentioned earlier, my daughter works for Duolingo that teaches you new languages, and they just added Navajo. I said, why don't they add Pennsylvania Dutch? So I don't know where that's going to go, but in any event, thanks so much. And we can move on in the agenda.
Okay,
You want
we'll
it?
sign off.
And I'll see it Saturday. How
Okay.
about Michelle, you want to move on to the next portion of the agenda?
Sure. So Stefano Foligno and Rob Hain are joining us. John, as a member of the Planning Commission, Chair of the Planning Commission, you at least remember, they came before the Planning Commission back in, I believe it was October, November, with a sketch plan for development of the vacant lot on Van Reed Road, right aside of Mr. McCarthy's office. I've been in contact with them for the past several months about the overlay ordinance with the 3 redevelopment districts that the borough adopted back in March. Now that that ordinance is in place, and correct me if I'm wrong, Stefano, I believe you now actually own the property or are close to purchasing it. They're ready to move forward with their plan. There is a section in that draft overlay, well, it's not a draft anymore, I'm sorry, that overlay ordinance that instead of a variance being required for any portion of the development that does not meet the regulations within the ordinance, it's conditional use approval, which goes before Borough Council. One of the things they've identified that's a potential issue is the building height, that it may need conditional use approval. So Rob Hain and Stefano Foligno are here to talk about what that project looks like, where it's going, and what action the borough may need to take to approve it.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Sal Folino.
I'm sorry.
No. Stefano's behind me. He's the developer. I'm his trusted attorney and also cousin. My office is here in Wyomissing, Brennan and Associates. Stefano and I are both lifelong Wyomissing residents, graduated from Wyomissing, so we're excited about this project. But Stefano, our goal here, Stefano's closing on the property shortly, is to get as much feedback from the community, have everyone involved in the borough, economic planning commission, the whole, everyone. We do appreciate any feedback you have. Right now, it's a vacant property, 3.9 acres in size, right next to McCarthy, as you just heard. It's currently undeveloped. The plan is to develop condo units, approximately 200. I think they're at 199. It's a straight shot right to the medical school. The current plan would require a 4-foot, I believe Rob can fill you in, 4-foot conditional use variance for the height of it. The current plan has 3 floors of underground parking to accommodate the 200 units. 200 units would be comprised of approximately 21 one-bedrooms and 178 two-bedrooms. Storm water management facility would be in place. There's some visitor surface parking. Again, this is all the proposed plan. So we just wanted to tell you a little bit more about the project and get any feedback and hopefully get your support for this project. So at this point, I'm going to turn it over to Rob, and he can fill you in on some of the details. And Rob's Burke Surveying and Engineering.
Thank you, Sal. Sal pretty much covered most of the bases on this. What you're looking at here in front of you on the display screen is essentially the first sheet of the architectural plans. This would be like one of the underground parking, the lowest underground parking structure. If you look on the upper right-hand corner, you can see the silhouettes of cars coming in and out for the entrance. So the entrance would gain access off of Greenwich Street in the back because that's significantly lower in elevation than Van Reed Road in the front. So the majority of the parking needed for the building will be all self-contained underneath the building within parking structures there. So you won't see a whole lot of outside parking here. This is primarily the development you're going to see is the building itself, which is set up in a W sort of shape, which will provide a lot of more attractive apartment units because they'll all have windows in the open areas between the legs of the W shape of the building. There would be green courtyard areas and a pool. Again, very naturalist areas. Again, looking to make more attractive housing to benefit any new people moving into the neighborhood, especially as Sal had mentioned. We look at the school, the educational medical colleges coming in, and they're going to need, those students and grad students are going to need and instructors who are going to need someplace to live. And again, piggybacking on what previous conversations the committee had today is that, any new development, new improvements or new people moving into the area are going to need housing. And I think that's part of the reason why the Wyomissing Borough adopted these overlay ordinances, was to allow for provisions with apartment buildings. So again, that pretty much sums up what we're doing here. Yes, she flipped the page, so now you can kind of see this is what a typical section of what one of the floors is going to look like. You'll have hallways that run down both sides, down the middle in each wing, I'll call it, of the W-shaped building. It'll be a straight shot parallel to Van Reed Road, and then 3 legs that stretch out going towards Greenwich. In between each leg that stretches out to the north, there'll be these open spaces with, you'll see the pool there on the right, and then there'll be outdoor, what's labeled as outdoor living area. There'll be a lot of green space. They want to make sure that there has some natural area mixed in with the building and the construction itself to make it more, more homey feel and a more, more comfortable environment. So all in all, I think this is a very good development. I like the I like the layout, and I believe that we should be able to adequately address all the needs for this development on the site itself. And again, as Sal mentioned, we're basically looking for some feedback or any questions or concerns that this committee has to see how we can address them or incorporate them into future plan changes.
I think it's important because I don't know where in the world all these people coming in for the medical school are going to reside, and obviously it'll be open to other people, but you know, that's one thing that Tower Health or Drexel didn't address, is housing for all these people that are be coming to town. And I think this is great. So when do you think it'll be done? I know it's probably a tough question.
I mean, if you guys can fast track us, I'm sure Mr. Polino would like to start building in a couple months, but you know, we may be looking at, it's difficult to say at this point with permitting, but I mean, you're probably looking at like 6 to 9 months for permitting approvals. You know, depends if we run into any issues along the way.
Is that how long it'll take, Michelle?
Well, I mean, the first step would be identifying what conditional use approval is required and holding that hearing. You know, there's timeframes under which the borough has to do that from when the application is received. But this would be similar to what I tell someone at a zoning hearing, which is, you know, you're gonna know the day of most likely what council decides, be ready to submit for your building permit. And I would also strongly suggest we have a pre-submission meeting with Craft to kind of do a review of the plans, make sure, you know, any preliminary questions they have, you can answer them face to face. That, in my experience, has gone a long way for once they actually get the permit submission, allowing them to do their review and approval in an expedited fashion. I think your potential hiccups here are going to be conservation district approval, not necessarily the borough. You know, the planning commission, the economic development committee, and council are definitely on board. Anywhere we can fast track a development project, we will help you out in any way, shape, or form. Same thing, you know, once those approvals are in place, same thing with Craft. They'll do everything they can to get you your permit that you can start as soon as possible.
What's the plan for leasing? Are they longer term, short term? What's the overall plan?
Longer term, at least a year.
Yeah.
At least a
So
year. At least, yeah.
So it's not short term, couple months.
No, I think 100 Park does that. I don't really know of anyone else in the area that does month to month. But yeah, our goal is at least a year.
You have any indication from current market prices what you would anticipate charging for rent?
Anywhere from 1,800 to 3,000.
Yeah, it depends on the size, 1,800 to 3,000.
The size of the unit.
So you're comparable to the other surrounding
Yeah.
complexes. Okay.
Do you think that might be too much for, excuse me, a medical student who just needs a place to rest and study?
That's something we can look into and maybe do some studio apartments where we could lower the rent on those studio apartments. But that's something we can definitely look into, and you know, any feedback does help. So if you guys would think we need some studio apartments, I'm definitely open to doing that for students. Yes.
Well, I'm not here to, you know, create your business plan, but I'm just thinking when I talked to the John Fry from Drexel, he said these people just want to have a place to lay down and study, but you guys can do whatever you want.
Sal, I have a meeting with George Haynes and Mark McNash on Monday, so I can float that question and ask, you know, what they think the demand's going to be and what, you know, if studio apartments were available that close to the school, one, do they think, you know, students would be drawn to them? And two, what would be, you know, potential number that you should consider building into the plan, and then cost for rent. Just see what kind of answer I get.
Yeah, so those prices were for the two bedrooms, so you figure at least 2 kids are in there, and then the 1 bedroom, would be on the lower end of that. But yeah, that's all stuff we still have to iron out here.
Any feedback from everybody would be great.
Yeah.
Why would you think there'd be kids there?
The students.
Oh, okay.
Yeah.
Okay. Anybody have anything else? It's exciting. It's one more piece of the puzzle that makes economic development in the borough of Wyomissing work. And that's what we're here for. So I appreciate it.
Michelle, what was did I say that there's gonna be an issue with height?
Yes, from what Rob mentioned, it sounds like they're gonna need conditional use approval to be 4 feet above the maximum height requirement within the overlay.
Oh, okay.
And that's mostly, Rob, correct me if I'm wrong, I believe the idea is to have the clubhouse on the roof. So I think that's the top floor. So I think that's where the 4 feet. That's where we get over the 4 feet.
Right, so the overall building height requirement is 75-foot maximum. The parapet wall, I believe, around the top for the community space or communal space for the building tenants is going to be on the roof, and that parapet would extend up to 79 feet. Now we have to go over the specifics, and probably this is where Michelle said a pre-application meeting with Kraft would be best. In that 79 feet is measured at the front entrance on the Van Reed side, and with the topography sloping down towards Greenwich Street, depending on where you measure the height, you may actually need relief for a little more than 4 feet if you're averaging it across all 4 sides of the building. Also, I just want to mention that the paved area, maximum paved area requirement we would also need relief from that as well. We're not expanding to create a lot of parking outside of the underground parking structure, but we wanted to make sure that there was additional parking provided on the property, because the worst case scenario is you build a structure like this and you don't have a buffer, and then then people are parking on the streets and causing problems for the surrounding community.
To add to that, just to refresh the committee's memory, in the overlay ordinance that was adopted, the standard for approval of conditional use shall be substantial evidence that the property can't be developed in accordance with the literal requirements of the sections within the ordinance due to topographic features of the property, stormwater related characteristics of the site, lot size, shape, proximity to a street, and safe site distance requirements, et cetera, et cetera. So, I mean, they're asking for 4 feet. They're not asking for 40 feet. And any of you that are familiar with the lot know the extreme change in grade from Van Reed down to Greenwich. So I think there's a good argument there for why the conditional use, should potentially be approved. And Fred just text messaged me a question. He wants to know if it'll be built as a potential condo in the future, meaning is there an option that in the future you'd consider converting from apartments to condo units for sale?
We would like to keep them as rentals.
Yeah, that is the goal, to keep them as rentals. Who knows what the future holds, but that's not in our plan at all right now.
Thank you.
How does the height of this compare to the medical school building? What is the height on the medical school building?
Off the top of my head, I think it's 115 to 120 feet.
Okay.
And that received zoning hearing board approval as well.
Okay. Any other questions from the committee or anyone else? And it's exciting. I appreciate you coming here and giving us a heads up, and we'll do whatever we can to help.
Yeah, thank you. We look forward to working with Wyomissing. We appreciate it.
So, all right.
Thank you very much.
Anything else from the committee on this part of the agenda? Okay, we can move on. Hey, thank you so much.
Thank
How
you.
about,
Yeah.
that's all for the agenda. Is that correct, Michelle?
Correct. I don't have anything miscellaneous, but I don't know if anyone else does.
Yeah, does anyone else have anything? Okay, in that event, the meeting's adjourned. Thank you.
Thank
Have a
you.
good day, all.
Thank you.